every day. Crochet. Hey, y'all. It's me again. One more time. Here I go, watching TV and just kind of searching out, looking out for all things crochet. Because why? Because I have a problem. No, JK. All right, I have a little bit of a problem, but it's healthy. It's healthy-ish, right? So anyway, today's entry, we have not one, but two blankets from the show On My Block that I was watching on Netflix the other day. So I'm primarily going to focus on the second blanket that I noticed, but I am going to show images of both. I may or may not do a video on the other blanket. Time will tell. All right, so let's get into it. So this pattern I noticed on the bed of one of the teenagers on the show. Again, this is the second blanket that I noticed in the show, but I got so excited when I saw this one because it was a granny square. If there are any other crocheters out there, any other crocheters who are watching this video, then you know that granny squares are, low-key their life. This is kind of what you want to learn. And fun fact about me, I was super late in the game to learning about granny squares. I didn't find out about them until 3 to 4 years into my crocheting journey, which I still kind of get a kick out of to this day. But yeah, this blanket had a whole bunch of granny squares all over it, which I thought was super cool. So I said, we have to highlight this. I think this is a pattern that most crocheters can look at and automatically identify. And I realized that the screenshot that I have here, it has the darker burgundy color in the middle on the square to the right. So it's actually difficult to count exactly how many stitches are on there. But again, because this pattern is so familiar, I think we will be able to break this down. Excuse me, I already told y'all English. We should be able to break this down relatively easily. So let's take a look at it. Now that we have zoomed in on this here blanket, because we had already kind of zoomed in, you get what I'm saying? So it looks like they started out again with either a magic circle. I actually hesitate to say because of the circumference of the circle in the very middle of these squares. So I want to say actually they probably started with a foundation chain of either 4, 6, or 8 stitches. All right, so just chain 4, 6, or 8 and then join them at the end of that with a slip stitch. From there you can see that there are 3 double crochets making each individual shell, quote unquote, if you will. So all that they're doing here is crocheting, and let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 just to start. So they crocheted 3, did a chain, crocheted 3 again, did a chain, crocheted and this is double crochet. Let me make that part clear. Double crochet 3 and then did a chain, and I did that 4 times, slip stitched at the end of a round, and that completed that round. So that's what started out that initial pattern of 4 and how it's going to kind of gradually increase exponentially. So similar to the pattern that we discussed when we watched that Judge Judy video clip, again we are going to increase now for this next row with doubles. So for the next row, you'll see that there are 2 sets of those 3 double crochet stitches together between each hole, if you will. All right, so again, they're doing 3 double crochet, doing a stitch, 3 double crochet, doing a stitch, and continuing all the way around. So where the first foundation had 4 sets of those 3 double crochets, this next row now has 8 sets of those 3 double crochets. And here are some numbers to help essentially make this plain so you can very clearly, or at least more clearly, see exactly what we're counting. So the reason why, again, granny squares are just, they're so dope and so great to learn is that once you have the basic pattern down, you can do so much with it. So this, again, this blanket is a great example because it was really more about the color choices than anything else. So once you don't have to do anything fancy here in order to switch out these colors. But before we get into that, so let me go ahead and finish telling you about the pattern here for these granny squares. So for the burgundy, again, that first initial part, we did our foundation chain, let's say of 8, and then we did 4 sets of 3 double crochets right back into that ring for the first round. And then for the second round, we did 8 sets of 3 double crochets around for that second round. So After that, for these granny squares, all that you have to do is a quote-unquote increase. All right, I say quote-unquote, but I actually know that that is the term for this, so that's what we're going to call it. We're going to go ahead and increase, but you only have to increase on the corners because we're making a square. And then when you're going down the row, you just go in between the spaces. So again, once you kind of get in the hang of it, it really works up rather quickly. You can make several granny squares, which is what they did here with this blanket, and then sew them together later on. So when sewing them together, I'm going to focus in a little bit on this detail there. You can do slip stitches. You can use single crochet. You can literally sew it together with the yarn and a needle. There's lots of different ways that you can sew together various granny squares to give a wide variety of looks. What they could have done here on this blanket was use some of the yellow or the orange to make it pop between the individual squares, but instead they really wanted to highlight that blue, so they continue to use that yarn that they used for the outside rounds to connect the various squares as well. So here on this granny square, I'm going to count and see how many rounds they had for each. So it looks like, I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 2 rounds with the burgundy, 2 rounds with the yellow, 1 round with the orange, and then 2 rounds again with the blue. After they made all of the granny squares. No, after they made all of the granny squares with this exact pattern, they then English is so hard. They then placed all of the squares together and arranged them, and then again, as you can see, connected them. So yeah, this was the pattern here. This was a very easy one. A very, very pretty blanket. I don't know if you guys have seen this show. It's really well done, I think, in my opinion. I was excited to see that they had another season out. But as you know, with all these shows, they can never just end things happy. You know, there's always something going on. And it's like we get caught up in these shows. And I don't know if you guys watch Grey's Anatomy or if you watch, any of those other drama shows. And it's funny because you're like, all right, yay, things are about to work out. And then, they just never do. There's always got to be that conflict within each episode, and then also the overall conflict for the entire show. Whereas, movies, at least we get our fa-la-la at the end, right? But yeah, all right. Back to the crochet thing. So yep, watching the show, this is what we saw. So this is our video for this time. Thank you again for watching our everyday crochet, and we will catch you next time. All right, thanks.